Good morning, everyone. The time is now 10:01, and I will call the February 19th, 2026 Planning Board meeting to order. We have the following board members with us today: Vice Chair Giraldo,
Good morning, everyone.
Commissioner Okoye,
Good morning.
and for the record, I'm Chairman Barnes. We will move forward with the business at hand. Please note that the deadline for all participation, pre-registration, and all submission of materials and exhibits were due on 12 noon on Tuesday before the planning board meeting. Please note that walk-in speakers sign-ups are no longer permitted. We will now get on with today's agenda. The order of cases for today's meeting are as follows: items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. First item on the agenda is item 2, draft minutes of February 12th, 2026. Is there a motion?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second, Mr. Chair.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
How about aye?
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. The next item on the agenda is item 3A, legislative updates. Deborah Borden and Jordan Balcom Colbert. Are they not here?
It doesn't look like they're on, Chair.
Oh, I'll check, sir.
I will come back to 3A. The next item on the agenda is item 3B, executive session. The following, pursuant to the general provision article of annotated code of Maryland 3-305 subsection B and 3, a closed session is proposed to discuss the acquisition of real estate property for public purpose and matters related thereto, and for the purpose of protecting the commission's negotiating position. It is now 10:03, and we will go into a closed.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into closed section.
Second, Mr. Chair.
It's been properly moved and second. We will now go into a closed session. Back for the roll.
Yes.
Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
I vote aye.
On the go.
Time is now 10:07. We will come back into session and we will go back to item number 3A, legislative updates and approvals. Deborah Borden and Jordan Balcom Colbert.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. I'm Deborah Borden, General Counsel of the Commission, and I have with me Jordan Balcom Colbert. We'll get right started with the legislative items. Senate Bill 688. This is the Stream and Floodplain Restoration Projects Bill. This bill impacts both sides of the commission, but in different ways. So the Montgomery side actually holds their own MS4 permit. That's basically a wastewater or water permit that allows discharge into the waterways of the United States, which includes our streams, our rivers, et cetera. So this bill would require the Department of Environment to basically prioritize certain practices related to stormwater management and really deprioritize stream management or stream restoration. These are projects that are undertaken by both parks departments in order to restore streams by removing underbrush, sometimes removing trees, sometimes removing obstructions, things that have fallen into the streams. These projects are important because we have a lot of stream valley parks. So, parks that were developed around the streams for the purpose really of protecting the streams and providing a buffer for development so that development wouldn't come right up to all of our streams. Our streams run into our rivers and eventually converge. I'm sorry?
Go into the bay.
Yes, they go into the bay. That's right. So there is a bit of a difference the way that it applies, because in Prince George's, the MS4 permit is held by the county and we participate with the county. But we do engage in stream restoration in both counties, and we're concerned about the cost. This is going to increase the cost, it's going to increase the time, and it's also going to make it so that the Department of Environment could turn us down. They could say, well, we're not going to let you do stream restoration. Instead, you're going to have to do, more traditional stormwater projects, which have ongoing maintenance and ongoing costs associated with them. So that is a concern. We've written up those concerns. We've heard from parks as well as planning, because this could also impact developers as well. Disallowing certain types of stormwater management that are available today. So I'll stop there and see if either of the operating departments have anything to add. But we are proposing to oppose this one. We can reach out to the sponsor to see if there's anything that we can do to explain our comments and our concerns to Senator Washington, Senator Mary Washington, I think.
Deborah Borton, I apologize. We need to pause for about 5 minutes as our live stream is not working.
Okay.
All right, my apologies. Time is now 10:24, and we will come back in. Ms. Borton, I apologize, but if you can start your presentation from the very beginning.
Okay, will do. Let me put the bill back up. Oh, great. Senate Bill 688. Again, this is the Stream and Floodplain Restoration Projects Bill, and a quick synopsis of what the bill does is that the bill proposes that stream and outfall restoration techniques would not be approved for compliance with MS4 permits. I know MS4 permits are a bit of an esoteric thing that not a whole lot of people deal with, but these are permits that are required, and in order to do any work in any of our streams. And since both parks departments, both Montgomery Parks and Department of Parks and Rec, they own a number of Stream Valley parks. So they're parks that were acquired specifically for the purpose of protecting our stream valleys. And so we have a lot of streams, we own a lot of property. These permits are very important. In Prince George's County, the MS4 permit is held by the county, and we simply participate through their permit. So the permit itself is not applicable to us, but the costs of any work in or around our streams is. And so this bill is going to increase those costs. It's also going to increase the likelihood that we will get turned down for stream restoration work in favor of, frankly, more expensive stormwater mitigation. Things like, when you see a development that goes in, it's got to put in stormwater, either a pond or actually ponds are disfavored now, other stormwater mitigation approaches. But all of those other stormwater mitigation approaches cost money to maintain. You can't just put it in and forget it. For a stream valley, the idea is you're cleaning up the stream to make it run better, to make it function better, so that it's not eroding the land around it, and also so that it is functioning as a functioning ecosystem. So Stream Valley, from an engineering and an environmental standpoint, can be a very good thing. Stream restoration can be a very good thing, but it has to be done properly. It can't just be a matter of clearing a bunch of trees and walking away. And so we understand that. We're very good at our stream restoration techniques in our programs in both counties, and we just feel like this bill is not helpful to the efforts that we have made and continue to make to protect our streams. So I'll stop there and see if Parks or Planning has anything to add to that. And we are recommending opposing this bill.
I have no questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Borton? Seeing none, you may proceed.
Can I get a vote to oppose the bill?
Mr. Chair, that we adopt the recommendations of our legal staff and oppose Senate Bill 688.
I second that.
Been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Thank you. House Bill 1296, preliminary subdivision and site plans, safe school routes. This is a hot topic this year. There's several bills in about safe school routes, basically the approaches, pedestrian approaches to our public schools, and wanting to look at that and increase the safety of that. So this bill, if I can get to the right cheat sheet. Oh my goodness. Yes, so this bill would focus on private developers. So the bill requires most developers of projects with 5 or more residential dwelling units. And I emphasize 5 because it's a very low number. So it would require them to submit a safe school routes report as part of any preliminary plan of subdivision or site plan application. The report has to document existing pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, identify a proposed safe route to public schools within the applicable attendance boundary, and it's usually basically a walkable boundary. So, you know, and that boundary is usually established by the Board of Ed. It would require them to assess the gaps and hazards along those identified routes and to describe measures to mitigate those gaps and hazards. Then the second part of the bill would, and this is a little bit fuzzy because the language of the bill, it says the local jurisdictions may not approve. So the use of the word may is a little strange there because it sounds like it really means shall not approve. But that's a point that we need clarified. So the bill would allow, or it may require, a local jurisdiction to withhold a preliminary subdivision or site plan approval if the safe routes report is not approved by both the planning board and the Board of Ed. Now that seems to give the Board of Education a veto over development, and that, or at least residential development of more than 5 units. So that is very interesting. That's very new. And it does seem to run counter to the big push in the state for more residential units. Adding another level of bureaucracy doesn't seem to be the approach that all the other bills are taking. The other issue and concern that we have, of course, is that the Board of Ed is not set up to review site plans and preliminary plans of subdivision from developers. So, you know, this could be a real bottleneck if this actually happens. Further, it would impose a financial guarantee on the developer to make the improvements that are identified in the report and withhold the issuance of a building permit until they do. So that's pretty substantial and potentially very impactful. We have a number of comments, obviously, about this bill. I can say, just sort of in summary, the first part of the bill is probably serviceable. We could probably make the first part of the bill work in terms of the report that would be required. That's probably something that we could work with the sponsors on to make that make sense. You know, because we still think the 5 dwelling units and above is too low. You know, a small development like that shouldn't have the burden of producing that kind of report. So we think we could work on that part of the bill. We are really concerned the rest of the bill just doesn't really work. The idea that the responsibility should be on private developers to maintain safe access to public schools is going to be an interesting issue to discuss with the builders of the state of Maryland, because that is not normally something that is their responsibility. And, you know, we might even run into legal issues in terms of whether there is nexus and proportionality to put that on private developers. So I will stop there and see if you have any questions.
Yeah, Ms. Borden, I would oppose this bill in totality. Simply because I think this bill is harming in nature of the work that we do. And I think it gives us an opportunity to work with the bill sponsor to see what their true intentions are, to help them craft a bill that is workable, that they can present next session. Do you know when the bill hearing is for this?
Jordan, do we have that? And while Jordan is looking for that, can I just mention, we do have a meeting set up with the bill sponsor on Friday, so tomorrow. And we were planning to discuss this with the bill sponsor. Also, the Montgomery board looked at this just this morning, a few minutes ago, and they basically had the same reaction you just had. You know, they were not really pleased with the bill, and they had real concerns, and they wanted us to try to, well, some of them wanted to outright oppose it. And we had asked them if maybe we can keep it as an informational item, since we are scheduled to talk to the sponsor, and then bring it back to you, and and basically report back as to what the sponsor was willing to to say to us, to discuss with us about the bill. So we could always change it to opposition, but we did want to have at least a conversation without telling her that we had an opposition in our hand. So
The bill hearing
Jordan?
is March 6th. So we do have some time, a little bit of time, as you know how session goes. But my recommendation would also be to have someone in the Prince George's Planning Department join that meeting as well. And I can send the information later.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure we can get someone from the Prince George's County Planning Department to attend that meeting. And I do agree. I think it's, always want to provide some opportunity for clarity from our state representatives to see what their intentions are. So yes, I would agree that we look at this or hold this as informational and wait for you all to come back and report on what your conversations were. Are there any other questions or comments from the panel?
I think that's the proper approach.
Great. Do we need to vote on that or?
No.
It's just,
no, we don't need a vote at this time. We'll bring it back to you for a vote after we have more information.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. So Senate Bill 829, this is another housing bill, Bring Back Main Street Act. And this is another bill that really has two parts to it. So let me see here, 829, where's my 829 cheat sheet? Of course, I can't find it. So let me pull it up. So this bill, just a quick synopsis, requires certain counties, and it's counties that have over 150 people in them, so population over 150,000. The bill requires those counties to allow multifamily developments as a permitted use. There's a little bit of question about what they mean by permitted. So does that mean no site plan? Does that mean, by right, go straight to permit? We're not exactly sure about that. So that's a point of clarification we need. But it would allow multifamily and mixed use on parcels that are zoned either recreational or commercial. And it would prohibit the county. I'm sorry? Do you have a question?
Say on recreational property as well?
Yes, recreational. Which, yes, that raises a number of flags. The bill would prohibit the counties from imposing certain restrictions on these developments. And it would authorize us to require these developments to include retail. We don't have to, but we could require them to include retail in the development. And so And then this, so that's the first part of the bill. And then the second part of the bill is rather different, and it really is very similar to other bills that we've seen in the past couple of years. So the second part of the bill really just sort of changes tack and talks about how they would prohibit covenants from being enforced on property that that is, you know, subject to any sort of open space covenant, any sort of covenant that doesn't allow residential development. And so again, the push seems to be that if you've got, you know, open space, you know, really according to this, almost anywhere open space, that it would allow the owner to disregard the covenant, disregard the deed restriction, and put residential on that property. Now, the obvious thing that came to mind for this for Prince George's County is the golf course communities that are in Prince George's County. Generally speaking, these golf course communities were built around a golf course. The golf course is somewhat in the middle of the community. The golf course is generally, if not zoned differently, it is definitely subject to covenants that require the space to remain undeveloped. And so this bill, it seems, would say, regardless of that covenant, say the golf course goes out of business, the golf course gets sold, the new owner could come in and put apartments in the middle of the golf course, and that would be allowed. And so, you know, my concern is that there are a lot of people in Prince George's County who would not appreciate that. And would really fight against that, you know, because, you know, from a planning perspective, there are, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into planning a planned development. It's a planned development, and there was no plan to put residential on the, you know, the main recreational or main open space in the community, you know, whether it's got a golf course or it's just an open field for passive recreation. You know, the plan was that. So this definitely would allow that to change, and would allow, you know, that to become housing. And so, you know, I assume that's going to be subject to a lot of debate. We have prepared some comments pointing out some issues with the language. In some cases, we found a couple of contradictions. We've asked them to provide clarity on what they mean by zoned for commercial use, because again, you're talking about the entire state. Everybody does their zoning differently. Everybody uses different nomenclature. So you have to define what you mean by commercial use. You know, in Montgomery, they have CR zones, commercial residential zones. So what is that? Is that a commercial zone? So we don't really know, and we need them to clarify some things. Also, we have pointed out that, let's see, there is a provision in here allowing the mixed use development that goes in on either a commercial or a recreational zone, that it can go in on either a public or private water system, water sewer system. Well, that means either public water and sewer or private, which is well and septic. And generally speaking, we don't do that. You know, that really goes against best practices to allow a mixed use development or a multifamily development to go in on a well and septic system. So, you know, we've identified some things that you know, we think are really important. And again, I think you know, the two halves of the bill, you know, it's possible that the first half could be developed to put, you know, a bit more clarity to it, and it could be workable. The second half of the bill, you know, I'm really concerned that it's too broad, and it really would have some unintended consequences. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for this bill. We have, oh, I'm sorry, Jordan, can you remind me, was this to go in as informational? Or,
This is information, this is Bring Back Main Street, right? So we
Right.
are informational with suggestions, and then we'll come back if we need to make alterations.
right, because this is Senator Waldstreicher, we've worked with him in the past on several bills during previous General Assembly sessions. So we really wanted to reach out to him as opposed to just putting in something, you know, opposition, that sort of thing. We really want to talk to him and see if we can help, you know, him, you know, sort of get this bill to a place where it could actually go forward. And at least have a discussion with him. So again, this is one that we want to go with informational. It may end up being something else. We don't know. It, you know, we need more information and we'll bring it back to you.
And I appreciate this. This bill reminds me of House Bill 1296. I think the intent of the bill sponsor is unclear. Do we know when the bill hearing is on this?
Yes, 1 second. It's actually the 24th, so it's next week.
Yeah, so I would say if you all cannot get to him before time, which you will not get to him before before our next planning board meeting, then I would go in opposition of this bill.
Okay.
So we can make well, I have a question first, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Would this, what impact, if any, would this have on easements that we, when we pay for easements? On private
Well,
property?
there's a question about whether, so in the first part of the bill says that it's only talking about developments on recreational or commercially zoned property. Some people have read that to mean that the second part of the bill also has that limitation, but I don't think the bill is written that way. The second part of the bill just starts over in a different section of the code. And I don't think the second part where it says the, you know, HOA covenants are basically void if you want to build residential. I don't think that part is limited to just recreational or commercially zoned property, because that wouldn't make any sense, really. You know, what they're saying is you can disregard HOA covenants, you can disregard open space covenants. You know, you don't really need the covenant if it's already zoned commercial. So, you know, this is for property that isn't zoned and is generally, you know, it's property that doesn't have anything on it because it's part of an HOA community, or it's part of a, you know, another, you know, sort of a plan. So that again needs to be clarified. That's an ambiguity in the bill that you know, that's one of the reasons we really need to reach out to the sponsor.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we give counsel to oppose the bill if they are unable to speak with the bill sponsor before the hearing.
I second that, Mr. Chair.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Would I?
Commissioner Corrier,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Okay, next bill. 1290, no, we did that one. Okay, House Bill 1452. Oh, this is, so this is a Prince George's County bill, Suitland Development Authority. We have been in touch with the sponsor of this bill. This would establish a Suitland Development Authority and require that authority to develop a revitalization plan for Suitland, and do a few other things, but also, you know, it really seemed like the bill and what the authority is doing is really up our alley in terms of the planning department. So we asked, and the sponsor agreed to be added to the development authority. So the language that we're asking for is that, in terms of who populates the development authority board, that we have a designee of the Prince George's County chair. I'm sorry, the Prince George's County Planning Board chair. And so that's our request, that we support the bill with an amendment, and that amendment is to add us to the bill. Did you have any questions?
Are there any questions
I have none.
No.
that we need to vote on?
Mr. Chair, I move that we
Yes.
support House Bill 1452 with the amendments postured by our council.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye. I vote aye as well.
Okay, and the final bill that we have for you is HB 1247. This is the TIF. So this is the tax increment financing bill for the Sphere project. You may remember, or at least Commissioner Giraldo may remember, that we had a similar enabling statute for the FBI project. And this is very similar in that it allows, it doesn't establish, it allows us to establish a TIF to support the Sphere project. This bill has been reviewed by our Secretary Treasurer, Gavin Cohen, as well as our budget manager, Terry Bacote Charles. The way a TIF works, just very quickly. So when a development, particularly usually large, impactful developments come in, the land assessment, the value of the land generally goes up. And so you can count on, when that land value goes up, you're going to get additional tax revenue. So you can pledge that additional tax revenue, not tax revenue that we have today, only that additional tax revenue that you get from this project gets pledged to pay bonds of a certain amount, to pay them back. And so it helps to get large projects financed, large projects that, will generate economic development, will generate jobs, will generate lots of other benefits for the communities that surround it. So that's the idea of a TIF. And this is being done in conjunction and, in lockstep with the county and their efforts to support the development of the Sphere project. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions or concerns.
I see no questions. Is there a motion to support?
Move that we support House Bill 1247.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Thank you. Is that
And
it, Jordan?
Deborah, as a
Uh-huh.
matter of formality, do we just need to just give them a briefing on the local bill for Montgomery County?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's a very short bill. Just so you are aware, Montgomery County voted to support a study. Again, it only involves Montgomery County, of housing availability and affordability. They made a bit of a joke about how, they've studied this, and now the DHCD at the state wants to study it too. So they have voted to support it, and just letting you know that happened this morning.
Thank you. There are no further
Thank you,
questions.
Jordan.
No problem.
That concludes the report of legislative updates. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the staff recommendation on the consent agenda items? And if not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, up to consideration of the record for item 4D to 4F, I move adoption of the staff's findings and approval of items on the.
Giraldo,
Yes.
correction, it's 4D, 4E.
I said 4D through 4F. 4D through 4F. I move adoption of the staff's findings and approval of the items on the consent agenda in accordance with the recommendations of our staff.
So second, Mr. Chairman.
It's been properly moved in second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Vote aye.
and I vote aye as well. We will now move on with the regular agenda items. The first item on the agenda is item number 5, countywide planning MRF 2025-005.
Site outlined in red. The site has previously been used for agricultural purposes. Next slide, please. The site falls within the Middle Patuxent River watershed. Next slide, please. This slide shows the master plan right-of-way. As mentioned, the site fronts along Central Avenue on its southern border. Next slide, please. Notification mailings were sent by staff on December 11th to all adjacent properties, registered community associations, and municipalities. Next slide, please. Project includes a solar facility consisting of 5,908 panels, an 8-foot-high security and wildlife fence, and an electric utility connection. The applicant's submission includes herbaceous ground cover with pollinator plants to be located below the solar panels, therefore qualifying the project as a dual-use land concept. Staff will further discuss and highlight additional dual-use land recommendations at the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. The site plan shows the layout of the solar array. An access driveway originating along Central Avenue is shown on the site plan and provides access throughout the site. The green buffer areas shown along the frontage of Central Avenue and along the western edge of the site are enhanced landscape buffers designed to minimize visibility of the solar array and assist in maintaining an agricultural field. Next slide, please. This slide lists the required permitting agencies that the applicant must obtain permits from. Next slide, please. This slide shows the soils map. The portions labeled MNB, MNC, and SRA are considered prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance with Class 4 soils or better. Per the soils report, these portions occupy 15.4 acres on site. The adopted uniform standards for mandatory referral contain guidelines for solar energy systems, specifically that dual-use land concepts are to be explored with solar developments when they are located on prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance. Next slide, please. This slide shows staff recommendations. As previously mentioned, the applicant has proposed pollinator plants with herbaceous ground cover to be located beneath the panels as a dual-use land concept. However, this is considered the least desirable dual-use land concept as stated within the Solar Energy System guidelines. As such, staff is recommending the applicant continue crop production or maintain livestock grazing on all portions of the site considered prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance as identified in the soils report. Additional staff recommendations include adhering to Maryland Department of Natural Resource guidelines, adhering to the landscape manual, and removal of all waste and debris as identified in the Phase 2 environmental site assessment. Next slide, please. Additional recommendations include updating plans to display the right-of-way, coordinating with the fire marshal, and incorporating additional modified Maryland Department of Natural Resource recommendations into the final design. Staff would note that the applicant has indicated they do not intend to oppose any of staff recommendations. This concludes staff presentation.
Are there any questions from the planning board? Seeing none, we will now hear from the applicant's attorney, Mr. Ghost.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. My name is Peter Goldsmith, with law firm Lurch, Hurley and Brewer in their Bowie office. Here on behalf of the applicant, APR RES LLC. Here in person from APR is Jonathan Stone, the Director of Development, Michael Ford, Project Manager of Development, and then here virtually is Benjamin Clemmer, our engineer with the ARM Group. Yes. Oh, mandatory referral, no swearing. Okay. So I want to thank Mr. Ryan for his coordination on this application. Mandatory referrals require a different kind of organization than other types of applications that come before the board. So we do appreciate his help with this. Next slide, Mr. Flanagan. As Mr. Ryan indicated, the property is located on Route 214. Just east of 301. So this is that short segment of 214 in Prince George's County that you might take if you were heading to Davidsonville or taking the back way to Annapolis or coming back from Annapolis, taking the back roads. And this property is in the county and outside of the boundary of the city of Bowie. Next slide, please. This, again, this matter comes before the board as a mandatory referral application because state law preempts local zoning regulation of solar energy generating systems that require a certificate of public convenience and necessity, a CPCN, from the Public Service Commission. And the CPCN provides authority to construct new generating stations. And in general, community solar developments that are 2 megawatts or larger require a CPCN. This project is a 3 megawatt facility of alternating current power. So this project requires a CPCN and therefore local zoning is preempted. And that's why the board's decision today is just a recommendation, not a legally binding decision. And that's why it's not coming before you the detailed site plan. But there is still a robust public process outside of the mandatory referral process that involves the Public Service Commission, the Power Plant Research Program, which is part of the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and also involves a public utility law judge. But that process doesn't necessarily include planning aspects, which is why the planning department, planning board can lend their expertise by way of recommendations concerning the site design, the mandatory referral uniform standards, and zoning standards. So bottom line is that even though the board is providing recommendations, we do take your recommendations seriously. And even though zoning is preempted, this use, the solar energy system, is permitted. Next slide, please. Next slide. So here's a side elevation of one of the panels. They will essentially just track the sun with a maximum height of 113 inches or 9 feet, 5 inches, and a minimum height of 74 inches or 6 feet, 2 inches. Next slide. The array design primarily uses, you can see on the right, it primarily uses land that's already cleared, and we're minimizing clearing to approximately 1.06 acres to the area in the northwest. It avoids sensitive environmental features like the wetlands in the north and streams and floodplains to the east and southwest. Access, as Mr. Ryan indicated, will be from Route 214. And as the board can see, there'll be new plantings will be installed to screen the array. And there's plenty of existing trees that will also be used for screening. Next slide, please. This is a zoomed in view of the land. I'm sorry, this shows a street view. Most of the array is not going to be visible. It's behind the hill of where the owner's future home will be located. That home that's shown on that slide was demolished and will be replaced with a new home where they will live. The limited areas of the array that may be visible currently from Route 214 will be screened with plantings. Next slide, please. This is a zoomed in view of the landscape plan that shows the screening that will occur with existing trees and new plantings. We'll have evergreen trees will be planted that are about 6 feet tall at the time of installation, and will reach approximately 15 feet at the height of maturity. And additionally, any landscape screening depicted on the design here will be in accordance with the Prince George's County Landscape Manual. Next slide, please. A tree conservation plan will be approved as part of the solar project, but this is a separate approval from what's before the board, and it's approved at the director level. There are 4 specimen trees on the property, and they all will be saved. The qualifying portions of the existing woodlands will be placed in conservation easements to protect those, all those trees, the existing trees, in perpetuity. Next slide, please. And so while we do understand the board's recommendation regarding grazing and crop cultivation, as well as general concerns about the use of prime farmland, but grazing operations and that kind of dual use isn't always feasible. The owner of the farm here has no intention of even continuing farming the property, and they currently only cultivate the land just for the cost of just maintaining the property. And 19 to 20 acres of cleared land are really not a significant source of income or crop production as it is now. And the owners don't have a grazing operation, and they don't intend to start one. So, and with respect to solar design, or the design of solar projects, as has been explained to me, certain agrivoltaic uses necessitates increased row spacing and elevated racking. So that would materially reduce the energy density. It would limit the total megawatts that they can develop on site. And given the site's buildability constraints, the addition of spacing requirements for agrivoltaics would significantly reduce the usable area. And that's why, in this case, with a smaller farm, a conventional solar layout provides a more efficient and reliable use of this site. And it's worth noting that to make the county and the state and this country carbon neutral and to meet its energy needs, we're going to need an unprecedented amount of solar development. And so there is a balance. But we are not asking the board to revise its recommendation. But the project will include a planting of native pollinator mix that meets the Maryland Solar Site Pollinator Habitat Planning and Assessment Scorecard, which is published and approved by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. And the entire limited disturbance will be seeded with a mix that mimics a natural Maryland meadow. So the project will still enhance on-site ecological value, support pollinators, and promote native vegetation. Next slide, please. The applicant was asked to conduct a phase 1 archaeological survey, which they did. Both the Maryland Historic Trust and the Planning Department said there were no further cultural resource work that was required based on the findings there. Next slide, please. As part of the public service approval process, there were 2 public comment hearings that have already been held. There was one in October, there was one a couple weeks ago that was in person. One neighbor across the street was concerned about how stormwater management would affect his property. We shared information with him, technical information with him, explaining how that it would not affect his property. And this was also addressed by a representative of the Department of Natural Resources Power Plant research program and supplemental testimony that was submitted into the exhibit here, in which the representative explained, as a result of the project, how stormwater is discharged to streams and is, quote, stretched out over a long time period, which stabilizes stream flow and reduces erosion and flooding. Even though zoning is preempted, the applicant is still required to submit an erosion and sediment control plan and a stormwater management plan to Prince George's County. And if you work in this county long enough, you tend to know a few people. And I was looking at the list of people who received notice in the neighborhood, and I realized I knew the son of one of the abutting neighbors who hadn't participated in the hearing. And so I picked up the phone and called him and made sure that he and his father were aware of this project. And they appreciated that. They had no comments or anything, but they appreciated being notified. Next slide, please. There are opportunities for residents to obtain discounts through the community solar program. Each electric utility has its own community solar website, but most of those websites direct residents to the Maryland Energy Administration site, which provides contact information for how to subscribe to the program and with additional contact information at the Maryland Energy Administration. So there's a link right there for anybody who's interested in that and who's watching. Next slide, please. And so we are comfortable with the recommendations in the staff report as Mr. Ryan read them. And so we thank the board for its time and ask for a favorable recommendation.
Are there any questions from the planning board for Mr. Goldsmith?
I have none.
Seeing that, and I see no one in opposition. Andy, is there a motion?
That we approve the MRF 2025-005 with the recommendations of staff.
I second that.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Okoye,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Have a good day.
Next item on the agenda is item number 6 and 7, companion items. Detailed site plan and departure from design standards, DSP-20053-02, West Hyattsville Phase 2, ETOD, and DPT-2025-003, West Hyattsville Phase 2, evidentiary hearing. We will now hear from staff.
Good morning, Chairman Barnes, members of the Planning Board. For the record, I am Jill Kozak with Urban Design Section. Item 6 is detailed site plan DSP 20053-02 for West Hyattsville Phase 2, which requests approval of the development of 342 multifamily dwelling units with associated infrastructure and amenities. Companion to this application is Alternative Compliance ACL-2025-0008, which is for Section 4.7, buffering incompatible uses of the landscape manual along the eastern property line adjacent to the West Hyattsville Metro Station. The request for the alternative compliance is detailed on pages 40 through 41 of the staff report, but is recommended for disapproval as the proposed design was not to be equally effective as normal compliance. Therefore, the applicant filed item 7, which is a departure from the landscape manual requirements, which is analyzed on pages 34 through 36 of the staff report and recommended for approval today. Multiple exhibits were submitted prior to noon on February 17th, but I will discuss those more at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. The site is located in Planning Area 68 in Council District 2 and within the municipal boundary of the city of Hyattsville. Next slide, please. More specifically, the property is located on the east side of Little Branch Run 250 feet west of its intersection with Acre Road and west of the West Hyattsville Metro Station and Wilmota rail lines. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within and being reviewed under the prior MXT zone. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within and being reviewed under the prior 2006 approved West Hyattsville Transit District Overlay Zone, or TDOZ. Next slide, please. The slide shows the site's topography, which is relatively flat, but includes environmental features to the south. Next slide, please. This map shows the nearby master plan rights-of-way, which includes Agar Road and Arterial Road in red. Next slide, please. This detailed site plan is the last phase of the development of the property to the west of the West Hyattsville Metro Station, portions of which include the townhouse community seen here, which is the riverfront at West Hyattsville community, and a mixed-use building that is already developed on the north side of this property. Next slide, please. The subject detailed site plan proposes to develop a 5-story residential building with 342 multifamily dwelling units on proposed parcel 2 with an associated parking garage and plaza improvements. The right side of this image shows the northern end of the property, parcel 1, which contains the existing vertical mixed-use building that consisted of 293 multifamily dwelling units and 3,213 square feet of commercial retail space that was previously approved with the original detailed site plan and has been constructed. To the left of this image is the proposed building on parcel 2, and at the far left is the existing compensatory stormwater management facility on parcel 2 that was also approved with the original detailed site plan and has been constructed. The proposed building will occupy the remainder of parcel 2 outside of the stormwater facility, and a pedestrian promenade existing will be between the existing and proposed buildings in the middle at an angle there. This promenade connects to the metro station via a tunnel under the tracks and will include amenities, if revised as conditioned, to encourage activation of the space, such as benches, trash cans, and an art feature. The main residential entrance to the building is located in the middle of the length fronting on Little Branch Run, which also includes the access to the proposed parking garage and internal loading and trash area. The proposed parking garage sits in the middle eastern portion of the building and is surrounded on 3 sides by the residential building. 2 internal courtyards will provide private recreational facilities for the residents. Next slide, please. The West Hyattsville TDOZ identifies a conceptual block layout and preferred land use categories for all properties within the TDOZ. As part of this detailed site plan, the applicant requests an amendment to the preferred land use plan category for parcel 2 from being partially within the structured parking and townhouse 2 to 4 story categories to being fully within the condominium 4 to 6 story category. Additionally, the applicant requests 20 amendments to the applicable transit district development standards within the West Hyattsville TDOZ. Staff recommends approval of the preferred land use category change and amendments to the standards as discussed on pages 9 through 20 of the staff report. The preferred land use category then controls the permitted uses on the subject property in the TDOZ. For the condominium 4 to 6 story land use category, multifamily dwellings are only permitted with ground floor retail uses. The submitted application requested a change to the list of permitted uses to allow multifamily dwellings with no ground floor retail for the proposed building, and the staff report recommends the planning board recommend disapproval of this request to the district council as discussed on pages 10 through 11 of the staff report. However, the submitted applicant's Exhibit 1 requests a modification to this request, the recommendation and condition 1N, which then would agree to provide no less than 1,000 square feet of ground floor retail or other non-residential use within the building. I'll discuss this further at the end of the presentation here with the exhibits. Next slide, please. The landscape plan shows landscaping throughout the site. The applicant has requested alternative compliance from section 4.7, buffering incompatible uses along the eastern property line adjacent to the metro station. The applicant does not meet the required buffer yard width or planting requirements. Staff recommends disapproval of the alternative compliance, and the applicant filed the departure DPT 2025-0003, which staff recommends approval of. Additionally, the applicant requested a waiver of the tree canopy coverage requirements, which staff recommends approval of, as discussed on pages 41 through 43 of the staff report. Next slide, please. This slide shows the elevations for the west and south sides of the building, facing the adjacent townhouse community and the stormwater facility. The building articulation includes vertical divisions of the massing, a selection of a color scheme that matches surrounding buildings, and a combination of brick, vertical, and horizontal siding and cementitious panels. Visual interest is provided by facade variations, balconies, and colored accents. Art will be incorporated around the main building entrance on the west and on the east side of the parking garage, which we'll see on the next slide, please. This is the north and east sides of the building. On the bottom image, you can see the parking garage, which will face the east side, again, the West Hydesville Metro Station side. The portion of the image shaded in purple will be where a proposed art feature will be placed. Next slide, please. The applicant provided a section of the site showing the relationship of the proposed building to the townhouses to the west on the left side of the top image and the metro station to the east. Additionally, a photo is included on this slide from a staff site visit showing the site's relationship to the metro station if one is looking north from the Northwest Branch Trail, which is at the south side of the site. Next slide, please. These images show the existing developed pedestrian promenade looking west towards the townhouses from the metro station area, with the site for the proposed building on the left of the image and the existing mixed-use building on the right. The second image shows the mural on the existing parking garage on parcel 1 on the existing building. Again, a similar treatment is proposed on the parking garage that is part of this detailed site plan. Next slide, please. Prior to the noon deadline on February 17th, the applicant submitted one multi-exhibit document. The City of Hyattsville submitted one exhibit, and 5 exhibits were submitted from citizens. The applicant's exhibits include revisions to Parts A and C of staff's recommendation and Condition 1N relative to providing retail on the ground floor of the building with flexibility to allow other non-residential uses. Staff is in general agreement with the applicant's proposal. However, for Recommendation A, a clarification is needed that the use includes multifamily dwellings, and the applicant should address prioritization for a retail tenant above other non-residential uses. The other applicant exhibits include photographs of the existing mixed-use building on Parcel 1, various images relative to the proposed development within the context of the existing area, a 2022 retail market study, and resumes of the applicant team experts. The submitted City of Hyattsville exhibit, dated February 13th, includes recommendations that are revised from the original December 30th document, which was included in the backup. The City Council did vote in support of both the detailed site plan and departure, subject to conditions as discussed on pages 45 through 46 of the staff report. Some of the conditions have been included in staff's recommendation, and others were not included as they involve issues that are not relevant to this detailed site plan, such as financing programs and a traffic impact analysis, which were part of the prior approved preliminary plan of subdivision. The February 13th memo includes 4 new conditions, which involve issues that are not applicable to this detailed site plan, having to do with the pricing of parking spaces within the proposed parking garage and roadway improvements within the adjacent riverfront at West Hyattsville townhouse community, which is not part of this detailed site plan. Citizen exhibits discuss concerns relative to density, parking, access, and roadway connections, specifically Nicholson Street, and the removal of the provision of retail uses. The proposed development falls within the density limitations of both the prior MXT TDO zones and the current LTO C core zone. Additionally, the site has a prior approved preliminary plan of subdivision, which also included the riverfront at West Hyattsville townhouse community, and the proposed detailed site plan is in conformance with the preliminary plan relative to the amount and type of development and access and roadway connections. At the time of preliminary plan of subdivision, it was determined that the applicant would construct Nicholson Street and Kirkwood Place to the property line within the townhouse community, but that the timing and opening of and ultimate construction of the 2 road connections would be determined by DPI and the city of Hyattsville, who are the operating agencies of those rights-of-way. The applicable zoning regulations in this DSP have no minimum parking requirement, only a maximum, due to the site's proximity to a metro station. The proposed development conforms to the parking regulations, and issues relative to the pricing structure for the parking garage are operational and not subject to the detailed site plan. The provision of retail uses was discussed in the staff report and has been further modified by applicant's exhibit, which does now propose to provide non-residential uses on the ground floor. With that, the urban design staff recommend the planning board adopt the findings of this report, disapprove alternative compliance ACL 2025-0008, and approve detailed site plan DSP 20053-02, departure DPT-2025-0003, and one item that was not put on this slide is the Type 2 Tree Conservation Plan, TCP2-2025-0074, subject to the recommended conditions of approval within the technical staff report, as revised by applicant's Exhibit 1, except to include amendments as identified by staff. Staff will make associated changes to findings within the final resolution. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much and great job. Are there any questions from the planning board?
I have none.
Seeing none, we will now hear from the applicant's attorney, Mr. Howell.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. I believe we have to be sworn in, all witnesses be sworn in.
At this time, if we could have all witnesses and or persons intending to give testimony on this item to stand and raise their right hand. Please swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth.
And thank you and good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. Thomas Haller, attorney with offices here in Largo on behalf of the applicant, which is affiliate of the Gilbane Development Company. We have several representatives of the team present here today, as well as present online, prepared to answer any questions or provide additional information at your pleasure. With me today is Mr. Matt Machete with Gilbane Development, Mr. David Bickle with our engineering team with Soltez, Mr. Bill Dickinson with Rappaport Company, who is our retail broker. And then online we have Mr. Mike Lenhart with Lenhart Traffic Consulting, Mr. Doug Carter with our architect, Davis Carter and Scott, and Mr. Bob Brooks with our landscape architect, Kimley Horn, should there be any questions. I do want to, I agree with the chairman, but the staff did an excellent job in their presentation, and I want to thank staff for their assistance in working with us on this. We did invite staff out for a site visit to be able to walk through the project and the existing Phase 1 multifamily building to give them a sense of the community that is in the process of being developed, But as staff noted, when we first filed this application for this second phase of the multifamily, we did not propose any ground floor retail or commercial use in the building. And I'll explain the evolution of the development and why we did that. But we have, after speaking with staff and the city of Hyattsville, we have proposed an amendment to the conditions to provide for ground floor retail with the request that we have a little bit more use flexibility. In other words, that the space not be limited solely to a retail type tenant. And we'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But I think with that change, we're in unison with staff with regard to the proposed development. But I do want to, because this is a project that, quite frankly, commenced around 2015, and it has been under development for a long time. And I think it would be helpful to the board to hear the history of the project and the transition of the project to how we got to where we are today. Because this is not just about this one detailed site plan. It is really the culmination of many, many years of effort. And none of it would have been possible without the cooperation and the assistance of the city of Hyattsville, where your staff at the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, over several staff members who we've worked with over the years, as well as the Department of Permitting, Inspections and Enforcement, and quite frankly, the Department of Parks and Recreation. This has really been a partnership and a long-term effort to get to where we are today. And I would also like to say to the board that Gilbane Development Company is one of the few companies that could have brought this project to fruition. When they were introduced to this project in 2015, it consisted of a 245,000 square foot vacant paper warehouse that was completely within the floodplain. It had been built in the floodplain and it was in the floodplain. It was valued by SDAT at that time at $5 million, even though it was in the floodplain. When this project is completed, this phase 2 residential project is completed, the property will have an assessed value of over $175 million. They have built a tremendous amount of value, which benefits not only the county, but also the city of Hyattsville. And it took extraordinary efforts to get there. If the board is not fully familiar with Gilbane Development Company, they are an incredibly strong and experienced real estate development company and construction company. The firm has existed for over 150 years, and it is family owned. 6 generations of the Gilbane family have worked in the company, and it remains family owned today. And even though Gilbane is now a global development company, they have 45 offices worldwide. They have made significant and meaningful commitments to Prince George's County specifically. You may not be aware of it, but Gilbane Construction renovated and expanded the old Cole Field House at the University of Maryland into the Jones Hill House that exists today. It's a absolutely state-of-the-art sports facility. Gilbane Development Company and Construction also partnered with Prince George's County Public School System on phase 1 of the Blueprint for Schools. The 6 new schools housing 8,000 new students were developed and built by Gilbane. Gilbane has also been involved in individual development projects in this area. You may be familiar with Atworth, which is a mixed-use development constructed at the College Park Metro Station and the Purple Line Station that is under construction there now. And they also constructed a student housing project called Tempo, which is located on Route 1 in College Park, which is an award-winning student housing project. All of these projects have been one-of-a-kind transformative projects that a company with Gilbane's expertise and vision could construct. And the Riverfront at West Hyattsville project is no different. Even though this is called phase 2 on the site plan, because it is the second phase of the multifamily component of the project, it's really 4 separate phases. The first phase of the project, which you can see on the image in front of you, was 183 townhouses that were constructed to the west of this proposed project. The second phase was the construction of the Kaiser Permanente Medical Office Building on Ager Road. That was an amazing opportunity, allowed Kaiser Permanente to remain in the community. It's a 45,000 square foot office building providing medical services to the community. Phase 3 is called the Sovereign, and it is 293 units with 3,000 plus square feet of commercial on the ground floor. Sovereign was constructed using funds acquired from Amazon, and 50% of those units are permanently affordable. If I could ask for the to pull up applicant exhibit 3, I would like to go through the first 4 slides in that exhibit.
You guys need a minute? We're gonna take a 5-minute recess. Now is 11:49. We will get back to items 6 and 7. Mr. Howard.
Thank you again, and thank you for your indulgence in working out these technical issues. As I was saying, I was just going through the overall project of Riverfront West Hyattsville, and I wanted the board to have a better feel for how this project sits within the context of the overall development. So you can see on the slide that's in front of you what's labeled as phase 2, which is 342 units. That's this project that's before you today. And where it sits in relationship to the metro station, which is at the top of the screen. And those who are familiar with West Hyattsville know that as you leave the station going toward Prince George's Plaza, the line goes underground. It goes underground at this property behind the medical office building that is built for Kaiser Permanente. The driveway or the roadway that enters into the site from Ager Road literally goes over top of the track. In fact, one of the things Gilbane had to do was to evaluate for WMATA the structural integrity of that tunnel to make sure that it was adequate to put this road over top of it. And if we go to the next slide, I mentioned that the site was impacted by the 100-year floodplain. As this project has progressed through its development, the sections that have been developed have been filled and removed from the floodplain. In order to do that, we had to provide compensatory storage, which is basically a stormwater management facility. You can see the devices that have been constructed behind the townhouses. And in this particular property, which is the total area of 4.98 acres, a portion of the site will be raised, which is the building area that you see on the slide. And then the compensatory storage will be extended from behind the townhouses behind this property to create a consistent area. Now that the area to the left there behind those ponds is the Northwest Stream Valley Park. When this project first started, there was a trail that ran through the woods and led to the metro station, a part of the Northwest Stream Valley trail system. However, that trail was buried in the woods and not lit. It was not considered to be a safe trail. There were a lot of incidents that had been reported along the trail because of through the park police. And so what Gilbane did as part of the development of the first phase was they removed that trail and reconstructed it and lit it along the back of this development and to the metro station to provide incredible connectivity. And the other thing that they did was that when WMATA built the station in 1992, they constructed a trail that ran along Ager Road that connected the Kirkwood Apartments and next to this development, and allowed access to the trail. I mean, to the metro station. That trail, was probably about 4 feet wide, and, the lighting was every bit of 30 years old. It was not safe, and it was not adequate. And so one of the things that Gilbane, proposed as part of this development was to reconstruct that trail and relight that trail. And those improvements were all done as part of the development of the first 3 phases of this development. Needless to say, a project of this scope with this many issues between the floodplain and the trails and everything required a company with the vision of a Gilbane development company to be able to literally pull it off. And the development that's occurring now, the second phase of this residential project, is something that Gilbane has a lot of experience in. Gilbane has built or is developing over 25,000 residential units. And so their experience in developing multifamily buildings, many of which are mixed use and have ground floor commercial. So they have a lot of experience in doing this type of development. So I'd like before I go into that, I would like to ask if we could go to Exhibit 2, Applicant's Exhibit 2. And Applicant's Exhibit 2 is just an overview of the Sovereign, which is the first phase of the development. And what I wanted to show you, I wanted to show you some images of that. And I think what's important is these are not artist renderings. These are actual photographs of what they built. This is the entrance. You can see an art component incorporated to the right side of the entrance into the building, and the lobby. If we could go to the next slide. There's another image of the entrance, and the attention to detail, the use of mix of colors and materials. It really provides a vibrant look. It's very consistent with the architecture of the townhouses that were constructed. And I would note that the townhouses were not constructed by Gilbane. They were constructed by Stanley Martin Homes. But the design of the apartment buildings was intended to complement and to accentuate the existing design there. If you go to the next slide. The staff showed you another image of this, but this is the artwork that was placed on the garage, which faces the metro station. It's not very often that a multifamily or a mixed-use project, when it's written up in publications, shows the rear elevation of a project as opposed to the front elevation of the project. Gilbane contracted with a local artist from Hyattsville to do this mural. I encourage you to see the time image video of how this was done. It's an amazing piece of art, and the same thing is going to be done on this second phase of the residential project. But it just shows you the attention to detail that they have put into every aspect of this building. If I go to the next slide. This is the existing pool on the phase 1 of the Sovereign. And again, what you're seeing are not artist renderings. These are actual photographs of what they constructed. Go to the next slide. There's the outside area outside of the pool with the fire pit, the outdoor kitchen, seating areas. This is just to the north of what will be phase 2. If I go to the next slide. And then I just have a couple of images of the actual interior of the building that's now complete. And you can see, again, the attention to detail. I might remind Commissioner Giraldo, when we presented this to the planning board originally, you said this is the kind of multifamily development this county deserves and needs to get. And I would say that Gilbane totally delivered on its promise, and in terms of the level of commitment, the level of detail, and the intentionality with every single thing that they do with regard to the projects that they invest in. Just go to the next couple of slides just to show the remaining interior images. And the community space is absolutely wonderful. The gym, fitness center. Now, if you could go back to into Exhibit 3 to the, I guess would be the 5th slide. There you go. Oh, next one. I'm sorry. Okay, so these are images of the proposed building. You saw in the staff's backup just kind of the two-dimensional drawings, but I have a couple of images of that. But I wanted to start with this image because This is an image of the proposed building, where the building fronts on a Little Branch Run, which is the main road that comes into the riverfront of West Fayetteville, and the building turns along the pedestrian promenade that goes to the metro station. And as I said, when we originally provided the plans, we did not propose any ground floor commercial space. But at staff and the city of Hyattsville's prompting, we are proposing to add the commercial space that you see right where the promenade starts at Little Branch Run. And that location was selected for a couple of reasons. If you go to the next slide. This is an image that shows the pedestrian promenade, and you can see it. It's on the right-hand side of the screen. On the far right is the southern end of the Sovereign, the Phase 1 development. And you will see that we had the retail portion of the Sovereign right there on Little Branch Run, right at the promenade. And so the space that we've designated for retail in the second building is directly across the promenade from the retail in the Phase 1. And it starts on Little Branch Run and then it runs up. That space was specifically chosen because it's visible from Little Branch Run. Visibility is very important, and because it's directly across from the Phase 1 retail. But I will also,
How much square footage is that?
it's a little over 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to talk about a bit is the promenade. Staff recommended some additional features be added to the promenade, and I wanted to talk about the promenade a bit. The promenade is very important to this project, and it's a perfect example of the Gilbane taking an encumbrance and turning it into an asset. That promenade is actually a combination of a WSSC easement, water line, storm drain easement, as well as a fire lane, which limits what we can do with it in terms of putting into permanent structures. We can put hardscape in there, we can put landscaping in there, but we have to be somewhat careful. But what we've done is gone back and look at where we can add seating, where we can add art features, where we can add other things. But the reason that we didn't propose any permanent things in the original application is because this is an important part of the programming of these multifamily developments. Every modern multifamily development that's built provides tenant amenities and services. If you do not provide programming for your tenants, you cannot differentiate yourself from the market. Between the Phase 1 multifamily and the Phase 2 multifamily, Gilbane will be managing 635 units there. And so this promenade becomes a place to have farmers markets on Saturday mornings, to bring food trucks in for the benefit of the residents. But it won't just benefit the residents of the two multifamily buildings. It'll benefit the residents that live in the townhouses. It'll benefit the residents that live in Kirkwood. It'll benefit the residents of the general area who ride their bikes up the Northwest Stream Valley Branch Trail and then come through this development in order to get to the metro station, because we have connected the entire community to the metro station through the trails that we built as part of this development. And so Gilbane wanted to make sure that they provided sufficient space to be able to program that area. But with staff's encouragement, what we have done is we have added additional amenities in the form of seating. If you go to the next slide, you can see some precedent images of what we're referring to in terms of the types of planters and seating that we're proposing to add to the promenade, in addition to the programming that will be done as we move forward. And then I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about the amount of the retail or the commercial space, because I know that has been one of the topics of discussion. Before I get that, there's a couple of slides of other images of the building, so let me just go ahead and get through those. If you go to the next slide, Mr. Flanagan. Again, there's the front of the proposed entrance. Next slide. Another close-up of the entrance. Now, this is another feature that's been added to this building. As you saw from the images, the southern end of this building will be overlooking the Northwest Stream Valley Branch Park, or Stream Valley Park. And if you see, we have a 5th floor outdoor deck area, an overlook that will be programmed and used by the residents throughout the year in order to provide a tremendous vista for the Stream Valley Park. So that's a tremendous feature to be added to this building. You go to the next slide. Go ahead, next slide. So as I mentioned before, Gilbane has a tremendous amount of experience in dealing with not only multifamily developments, but also mixed-use developments. And so the amount of retail in this proposed development is not something that they are trying to guess at or are not seeking any guidance on. Specifically, they have been working with retail brokers from the beginning of the design of this project. This is a market analysis that they had obtained in 2022 before they even constructed phase one that talks about what the market is for retail at this location. And what this market analysis said was that the maximum amount of retail that this site can probably accommodate is about 2,500 square feet. Why would that be? Well, because Little Branch Run comes from Ager Road and it dead ends into that site. There is some discussion, and the city of Hyattsville and the county may extend and are hopefully will connect Nicholson, but it does not really provide any additional outside traffic into the area. And so there's just a limited amount of visibility. There's a limited amount of number of vehicles that go through the facility. The primary market for the retail are the townhomes and the bikers and the hikers that come from the trail. So there's a limited market opportunity. And so we were told when we planned the development that that was about the maximum that we could expect. And we built that, more than that, in phase one of the project. So now we're coming to phase two. And the reason that they didn't initially propose any additional retail in phase two was because they were told that there wasn't enough capacity in the market to provide more than that. And so, but yet they have proceeded to add some additional square footage here. But I also wanted to ask for our broker, Mr. Bill Dickinson, to talk to you a little bit about what he's been doing. Mr. Dickinson, as I mentioned before, is with Rappaport Company. If you don't know Rappaport, they're one of the premier retail brokerages in the Washington metropolitan region. And Mr. Dickinson has been working with Gilbane for 3 years on the marketing of the retail in the first phase of this development. And I wanted him to address you as to what efforts that he's made to do that, what response he's gotten from the market, what progress, if any, that they've made in terms of leasing that space, and then to provide you, his understanding of how we'll be able to move forward with any additional retail or commercial opportunities in phase two. So I'm going to ask him to present to you very briefly.
Thank Chairman and board members. So yes, I'm Bill Dickinson with Rappaport. We are lease and manage 72 shopping centers in the Mid-Atlantic. We're a 100% retail company, 100% in this market. We have numerous projects we've worked on in Prince George's County and will continue to. It's been a great partnership over the years. We work on traditional shopping centers, but we also work on mixed use. We lease about 110 different mixed use projects, ranging from a downtown office building to, which has retail on the ground floor. So what we do is when owners or developers with expertise upstairs need expertise on the ground floor, that's when we get the phone call. And it's really interesting. We had this thing you might have heard of called COVID, and everybody predicted retail was dead. Well, retail's strong. And we see, throughout the region, we're big fans of retail, and it continues to thrive and survive. And we always have thought it's a really important part of these mixed-use developments. This is what we live and breathe. A project like this has a few interesting challenges. We love the density. So retail, and everybody, one of the great things about being in the retail business is everybody in this room interacts with retail every day. You might be grabbing a cup of coffee to Starbucks, you might be buying groceries, or you may in fact get on the website and go to Amazon, or you may get Instacart. There are any numbers of ways that are much more options for consumers these days to spend their retail dollars. So as we look at a project like this, we always have to think, who's the constituent that we can effectively serve with this retail? Because if it doesn't work for the retailer, there's no point in doing it. You'll just have a continuing a revolving door of people failing and going away. And that doesn't do anybody any good. So we've been working on this for 3 years. Our initial outreach, we do two things. We always because of our broad relationship with retailers across a big portfolio of properties that we lease, we have the ability to reach out to them directly, which we do. And then we additionally, and that's like 7,000 retailers that we can literally email them, hey, got a new opportunity, you want to be there. But we also do the real sort of what one of my partners likes to call the blocking and tackling of retail, which is you go to the retailers that are closest to your site and you go, you guys are successful here, we've got another opportunity, do you have another concept, would you like to do something? And then, of course, we just broadly market the retail to everybody in our industry, which is, there's quite a few people that focus on this segment of the market. And we did, in fact, in Sovereign, we have 2 pieces of space there. We have signed a lease with ironically, a group that literally lives in the neighborhood and has had this idea of opening a coffee shop and opening, they're doing 2 things. It's called Bean and Barrel. They'll have morning coffee, pastries, all those types of things. And then in the evening, it's more of a wine bar, specialty beer items and things like that. So again, a community gathering spot. So there's certain elements in a community like this that are the most likely to work. It's not going to be, we can't really find a national retailer. They're not going to take this type of retail space. National retailers look for traditional parking, which is a parking field, which we don't have. They look for high visibility sites with high traffic counts. We are effectively in a dead end environment. There's one way in and one way out. And so what we really need to do is put together, put a retailer in that will serve the community. Our goal was exactly that. And we have, in fact, found one. She's not open. She's going through the planning process, but hope to open later this year. And as we said in a community meeting with the neighborhood, as we were talking about this, you need to vote with your wallet. You need to support this retailer. And this is one of the things that often happens. We've done a lot of work in jurisdictions where the retail is underserved. And what we really need is the community to support the retailer once we are able to get it done. So in the next phase, our goal for this site is to be able to add, the perfect tenant would be a small convenience store, a bodega, traditional place that hey, I'm making a cake and I realize I'm out of eggs. Where can I go? And to have somebody within walking distance for this community, both the high rise as well as the townhome community. And that's the goal. It's in this current environment with the fact that you can DoorDash a dozen eggs and get it in 15 minutes. It's a little hard to predict whether or not the community will really support that. And in the application, we're just looking for a little flexibility on the types of uses. We have our preferred uses that we know the community will really want, but it's not 100% certain that will work. Maybe it's an insurance agent that can serve the community. Maybe it's a sort of a quasi-retail storefront, but has more flexibility in the types of uses. So we love these types of mixed-use projects. We have a ton of success with them, but they are very tricky because the traditional retail drivers are visibility. We don't have that. Parking, we only have street parking for the retail. And then additionally, just the visibility from a major roadway, which obviously we don't have. So that's why we're really trying to strike a balance with the retail. We want enough to be successful, but it doesn't do anybody any good to have too much retail, which effectively would sit empty. And, that's an eyesore for everybody. It's bad for the community, bad for the developer.
Let me ask you a question. And your name once again, I'm sorry.
Bill Dickinson.
Mr. Dickinson. Explain to me your community outreach for retail.
It's literally, we work closely with Prince George's County in terms of their,
Who within Prince George's County did you work with?
Anthony Jeffries at Economic Development.
All right, so you work with Anthony from Economic Development Corporation. You reached out to roughly 7,000 retailers nationwide in regard.
Regionally, more regionally.
Reached out to Prince George's Chamber of Commerce.
I have not actually.
Have you reached out to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce?
No.
All right, so I say that there are pockets of opportunities that would fit within the scope of that retail in that particular community.
Great.
I say that there are a number of local small business organizations that would love the opportunity to have retail in a similar situation like that. Should you need help or assistance, My team is ready to be of assistance because at the end of the day, I believe that there is a need and a desire for that type of retail in that space that we're speaking about. There do I say that the organizations that I just listed would love to have a conversation with you, love to have you come present this space to their members to see what kind of feedback that we could get.
Sure.
When I look at this space as far as retail opportunities, do I say that I believe that there are a need and a want, and in some cases, a desire for that type of retail in West Hyattsville. We just have to do a better job of our outreach and getting the message out there. Business is open in that area, right?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Mr. Dickens. I appreciate it. I appreciate those comments, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that he talked about was taking advantage of the location next to the metro station. And one thing that I do want to make comment on is that while this is the last phase of this specific development, it really is the first phase of the redevelopment of the West Hyattsville Metro Station. WMATA owns most of the land on the other side of the tracks. They had put out an RFP several years ago that ended up going nowhere. They are close to issuing another RFP for the development of the land right around the metro station. We want this development to be a success. We want this development to not have empty storefronts, to not be viewed in any way of a negative light. And that's why we're very cautious about oversupplying retail opportunities at this location. While we've been fortunate enough to have a local resident in the townhomes willing to give it a go with the bean and barrel concept, we want to make sure that we don't create a scenario where we have empty retail, especially on that promenade, because it is an important feature in this development. And so that's really what has impacted our our decision in terms of how much retail to provide.
Mr. Albert, if I can chime in, listen. No one will want empty retail space in any building that they're building or any facility. It is a matter of doing the proper outreach to ensure that the effectiveness. So once I can hear that the outreach or the net has been casted wide, that we can then determine if there's ever going to be empty space or not. From the presentation that I just received, the net has not been cast wide enough to even determine if there's interest in that retail space, or should there be empty space at all, or should there be some type of other concession for retail space. So those things, as I'm listening to your presentation, I just want to make sure that, once again, it's just like any other community outreach or engagement, that we're really casting the net wide enough to ensure that we're reaching out to folks that could take advantage of these opportunities.
And we totally appreciate that, and we agree. I mean, we will continue to work, as I said, and again, my comments are to convey to the board that Gilbane does not leave any stone unturned. They will work diligently to make sure that every opportunity to lease these spaces is investigated, and that because it does them no good to have the space not filled. And we will continue those outreach efforts to the Chambers of Commerce in order to make sure that this space is filled. And we appreciate the chairman's comments with regard to that. So with that in mind, staff had indicated that we had proposed revisions to the conditions, and that there was one modification to the conditions that we wanted to propose. Staff exhibit number 1, if we could go back to that, provided our proposed revision to the condition. And as staff indicated, the West Hyattsville Transit District Development Plan is a little bit unique because it classifies properties in certain character areas, and then the uses that are permitted are based upon that character area. And so in the specific character area that is applicable to this property, multifamily with ground floor retail is a permitted use. What we have requested is that the applicant have the ability to be able to seek tenants that are not pure retail. And so when you look at the use list in the West Hyattsville Transit District Development Plan, it actually does not permit any commercial uses, including retail, as a separate use. It's only in conjunction with ground floor retail. So we wanted to make sure that the recommendation A gives a little bit more flexibility with regard to the uses that are permitted in the property. And in response to our submitting this language, staff indicated that, well, you need to make it clear multifamily is also a permitted use. So I have a proposed revision to the condition, to the recommendation that you see before you that I'd like to read into the record. So that the revised recommendation would state, recommend to the district council approval of the property owner's request to permit multifamily with ground floor retail and or ground floor non-residential uses to include any type of office or financial service use, eating or drinking establishment, services and trade, barber or beauty shop, bookstore, pet grooming establishment, drugstore, hardware store, veterinary clinic, department store, dry cleaning or laundry pickup station, food or beverage store, studio for artistic practice, community building, art gallery or cultural center, in addition to retail uses on proposed parcel 2, provided such use is not prohibited by section 27290.01 B3. Again, the purpose of that is to, while we will pursue a retail use in that space, if we find, for example, that an art gallery wants to be there, that wants to be able to show its wares outside on the promenade, but also sell artwork, we want to be able to bring that type of a tenant in there as well. And I think that providing a little bit of use flexibility in this space gives us the comfort that we need to be able to provide that, build out that space, and offer it to the local community for lease. That would conclude my presentation.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Haller?
Mr. Chair, no, I support what you said in terms of reaching out to different business organizations that Rappaport should look at, as opposed to the national retailers. And there are several local business enterprise or business organizations, I should say nonprofits, that probably would be very interested in this. Besides that, one thing that I didn't see, Mr. Haller, and I think it helps the community keep its cleanliness, is, are there any dog waste stations proposed?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Actually, they exist. Although when we were out there, there was a deposit right next to the dog waste station that somebody did not pick up when we were out there for the site visit. But yes, they already exist. They've already been installed.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
I believe that there were 2 people in opposition, Mr. or Mrs. Kaufman. Chloe Kaufman.
Afternoon, Chairman Barnes and members of the Planning Board. For the record, this is Chloe Kaufman, City Planner with the City of Hyattsville.
You have 2 minutes.
I'm here today representing the City of Hyattsville regarding detailed site plan application DSP 20053-02 and associated departure from design standards 2025-003 for West Hyattsville Phase 2. On behalf of the Hyattsville City Council, I want to express our support for the proposed multifamily development. The city identifies that this project will prioritize and promote transit-oriented, development in a critical transit district located next to the West Hyattsville Metro Station. The increased density, attention to sustainable planning initiatives, and the recent inclusion of non-residential space and proposed public art initiatives are all added benefits to the developing community. On Monday, December 15th, 2025, and subsequently February 9th, 2026, Hyattsville City Council voted in support of this DSB and associated DPT. with several proposed recommendations for conditions upon approval that Ms. Kosak had summarized earlier that we believe will positively impact the site and surrounding neighborhood. 5 city-approved recommendations are listed in the staff report under referral comments section K, and the 4 new recommendations were submitted separately and earlier this week in the final Hyattsville City decision letter dated February 15th. They are listed under our recommendations for conditions of approval numbered 6 through 9. Generally, our comments focus on vehicular, pedestrian, and bike connectivity, equity and affordability, increased placemaking, and transit-oriented planning initiatives. I thank the planning board in advance for its considerations of our comments.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Ms. Kaufman?
Just one, how is the city of Hyattsville with regards to what was read into the record by Mr. Haller in terms of broadening the type of businesses that could be there?
It's of the city's opinion that we would like to prioritize retail space in this area. And community engagement that has been conducted, the residents are looking for retail space in the area. However, we understand the difficulties in drawing and attracting residents and other people into that space. However, we believe with added outreach, as was discussed earlier, we could get those people into those spaces, and that's what the community really truly wants to see. That's what's in conformance with the 2006 TDDP, is also in the newly adopted West Hyattsville Queens Chapel sector plan. So ideally, we'd like to see retail, convenience stores, barber shops, as was stated earlier. However, the inclusion was with the incorporation of other uses in non-residential space would be beneficial, and especially ones that prioritize an art-centered initiative or programming would be of a special interest to the city because we are an art-centered community and that's what we prioritize. However, again, we would like to prioritize that specific retail use.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
I believe that there was one more, Dexter Ware.
Good afternoon. Our chair, members of the planning board. My name is Dexter Ware. I am a resident of the Riverfront community in West Hyattsville. I'm here to speak today about the detailed site plan of phase 2, DSP 20053-02. I want to start by stating clearly, I support the goals of this project. My family and I chose to live in Riverfront because we believe in the vision of a transit-oriented, dense, and vibrant West Hyattsville. We know that Prince George's County faces a housing shortage. We've seen the projects targeted in Plan 2035, and we agree that the homes proposed in the phase 2 are necessary and welcome. However, density without infrastructure is not development, it is danger. Today, I'm asking that the board consider a critical safety failure that has been present since 2017. I'm asking you to condition the approval of phase 2 on one of the specific actions, the immediate connection and opening of Nicholson Street. Right now, our entire community consists of hundreds of housing units, including sovereign apartments and the townhomes, relies on a single point of entry and exit, Little Branch Run. Now imagine adding during the heavy construction and traffic of phase 2 and the eventual 300 plus or more households into a single fragile lifeline. It's a recipe of gridlock at best and a tragedy at worst. The frustration of our community is that the solution already exists. It's sitting there 15 feet away. The 2006 Transit District Development Plan mandated a grid. It mandated that the connection of the Nicholson Street, but in 2017, during the approval of the infrastructure plan, DSP 16029, a condition was written that allowed the road to be built to the property line while deferring its opening to a future administrative discussion. This discussion and decision has been in limbo for nearly a decade. We are told that this is a dispute between the city and the developer about who is responsible for the final connection. Meanwhile, we stare at this 15-foot gap of pavement that separates us from a safe secondary emergency exit. So we are done waiting for the right time. Phase 2 is that right time. You have the authority today or the authority to influence to ensure that the infrastructure keeps pace with the density. We respectfully request that the planning board add the following binding condition to this approval. No building permits for Phase 2 vertical construction shall be issued until the Nicholson Street expansion is fully paved, signed, and open for public traffic. This condition does not stop the project. It simply ensures that before we add more density, we fix the grid. It forces the development and the city to resolve the dispute and prioritize public safety over administrative delays. We also ask that you hold the applicant accountable for the unresolved drainage issues behind the Sovereign building, that the standing water remain a health hazard, another piece of unfinished business part of Phase 1. Please give us the grid we are promised, support housing, but demand safety, and open Nicholson Street. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeing that there is no one else signed up to testify, we will now hear the rebuttal from Mr. Howard.
Once again, Chairman Barnes, and I would like to address Mr. Ware's comments with regard to the road. If you look at the image before you, so there was a lot of discussion when the project was being planned back in the 2017-18 timeframe about the roadways, what's going to be public, what's going to be private, and what's going to connect or what's not going to connect. The way the project was designed, there are 4 public streets that run from Little Branch Run and then dead end into the existing Kirkwood apartments. One of those is Nicholson, and second one is Kirkwood, and then there are 2 others. At that point in time, the desire was to provide the opportunity for future connections at the appropriate time. And that was a determination that was ultimately to be made between the city of Hyattsville and Prince George's County, because Nicholson is actually a county road, whereas the roads that are within this development will be city roads. The roads within this development have been completed, and we've requested that the city accept the roads. They have not yet done that. They have the ability to do that at any point in time. What we were required to do when we went through the preliminary plan of subdivision process.
I'm sorry, Mr. Howard, I got to get it right. Once you get my age, you start to forget certain things. So you said you spoke to the city in regards to expanding the road?
When we first planned the development, the discussions were what roads, how would the roads connect, or when would the roads connect?
Okay.
So what we were asked to do, what we were conditioned to do by our preliminary plan of subdivision, our detailed site plan, was number 1, we were to design the road so that they could connect. Number 2, we were to dedicate the right of way so that there would be continuous right of way along those roads, which we also did. We were required to prepare street grade establishment plans to make sure that they could connect once we constructed our part of the road. And then the final thing we were required to do was we were to construct the roads to the property line. That did not allow them to connect, but that's what we were required to, and that's exactly what we did. We have done everything we were conditioned and required to do. When the planning board approved the subdivision and the detailed site plan in 2017, the condition was, it stated that it was agreed that the right-of-way needed to connect the streets would be dedicated, that grade establishment plans should be provided to show that the connection could be made, and that the applicant would construct Nicholson and Kirkwood to the property line, but not connect the roads. So the preliminary plan resolution notes that the ultimate construction will be determined by DPI and the city of Hyattsville. And that's where it sits. It sits between the city of Hyattsville and DPI. There's a couple of things that the board should be aware of. Number 1 is there is a fence that is constructed along the entire northern boundary of this development that prevents any road connections. According to the resolution that was adopted in 2017, that fence was constructed in 2001 by the city of Hyattsville. There are also bollards that were installed at the end of Nicholson that prevent us from connecting it. We don't have any control over that. That's totally within the control of the city of Hyattsville and the Prince George's County. The other thing is that the Gilbane Development prepared and submitted a RAISE grant with the federal government to seek funding for infrastructure improvements at the West Hyattsville Metro Station. In July of 2024, $500,000 was given to Prince George's County for roadway and infrastructure improvements in West Hyattsville Metro Station. None of that money has been used for any purpose. So the money is there to do it. It's a matter of coordination, not between us and the city of Hyattsville, between the city of Hyattsville and Prince George's County. We have fulfilled every obligation and commitment that we were asked to do, and we have sought and obtained $500,000 of funding to implement any roadway or infrastructure improvement that the county or the city wants to implement.
Mr. Haller, you gave a presentation earlier, and you spoke glowingly about Gilbane and all the wonderful things that they're doing. So I'm just curious as to why they would not want to help broker, interfere, get involved with the city and DPI to see how they could be amenable or accommodating with expanding the street or road.
We have been working with them and we have been accommodating, but they're also, when we went to we had a community meeting a week ago, and we were in the community meeting and some of the people said, we want the road connected. Some of the people said, we don't want the road connected. That is not our decision to make. It's a determination for the city and the county to make. Gilbane is not standing in anybody's way. Gilbane has fulfilled every commitment that it has been asked to make, and we will continue to do that. But we don't want to be put in the middle between the city and the county or the residents, because it's not our decision to make at this point. We've done everything we can to facilitate it, and we have secured the funds to do it.
Okay. So you're telling me from an outreach standpoint, you guys have done all that you could do or can do, and that when it comes to this particular road, street, the city and DPI needs to get more involved.
That's exactly it.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, and or concerns for Mr. Haller? Seeing none, being that we have no one else here to present or speak, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the findings and recommendations of staff as modified by applicants exhibit number 1 and as further modified as read into the record by applicants, and approve DSP 20053-02, detailed site plan for West Hyattsville Phase 2 ETOD, departure from design standards DPT 2025-003, and the type 2 tree conservation plan TCP 2-2025-0074, and disapprove alternative compliance ACL 2025-0008.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo.
Aye.
Commissioner Okoye.
And I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, item number 8, Community Planning Division Plan 2035, 5-year elevation 2 briefing. We will now hear from staff.
Yeah, I did already. Second. Oh, good.
You. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Planning Board. My name is Thomas Lester. I'm the project manager. I'm joined today by Adam Dotson, the project facilitator, and then Andrea Gills is in the audience, as well as Kui Gao. Thank you. Today I'm here to provide a briefing for the Plan 2035 second 5-year evaluation. Next slide, please. First, a little background. Plan 2035 includes a strategy, PM 1.3, that requires a 5-year evaluation report to track progress towards the growth management goals and the indicators of success. The last evaluation was published in 2020. This new report follows a very similar structure, but adds some new sections, including job projections, development pipeline estimates, regional indicator comparisons, and updates on recommendations that were made in the previous report. Next slide, please. This slide recaps Plan 2035's growth management goals for housing and jobs. To summarize quickly, regional transit districts are the primary focus for receiving new housing and jobs, with local centers as the second priority. Employment areas were primarily targeted for job growth with less housing, while established communities were targeted for more housing with fewer jobs. Rural and agricultural areas and future water and sewer areas were planned for very limited to no growth. Next slide, please. Here is a table reporting the number of dwelling units built between 2014 to 2024 and compares those numbers to the goals set in Plan 2035 for the plan's horizon year. This table also compares the distribution of new units across plan geographies and compares it to the distribution goals in the general plan. Next slide, please. Some of the key takeaways of this data, between 2019 and 2024, Prince George's County added nearly 11,800 new dwelling units, about 29% fewer than the previous 5 years, but still generally on pace to reach the 2035 goal of 63,000 units, which means we've reached about 45% of that target, which is slightly behind the ideal rate. However, growth is not occurring where Plan 2035 intended it. RTDs were expected to capture 50% of new housing, but only received 25%. Established communities absorbed 49%, more than double their target. Local centers performed reasonably well at 22%, just shy of their 25% goal. Growth outside designated centers has remained limited. Employment areas are aligned with their 4% housing target, and rural and agricultural areas continue to hold steady at 1%. Future water and sewer service areas where no growth is recommended did see some activity, but it declined from 2% to 1% compared to the previous period. Overall, while the total housing production remains on track, stronger efforts are needed to direct growth to the RTDs and the activity centers. Next slide, please. The report also includes an update on the housing pipeline, which estimates approved but unbuilt dwelling units. The table summarizes where these are located and how current development aligns with the Plan 2035 targets. Of more than the 48,000 pipeline units, only 20% are in the RTDs, far below the 50% goal. Local centers slightly exceed their target with about 29%, with town centers capturing twice their intended share. Established communities are slated to receive 39%, nearly double their 20% goal. Employment areas, future water and sewer service areas, and rural and agricultural areas are also positioned to receive more growth than planned. The map shows how these pipeline units are distributed across the county relative to the Plan 2035 geographies. Next slide, please. Here is a table reporting the number of new jobs between 2014 to 2022. And compares those numbers to the goals set in Plan 2035. This table also shows the percent of goals for new jobs that has been achieved up to 2022, which is the most recent year for data availability. Next slide, please. Some of the key takeaways from the county's employment data. Overall, job growth has underperformed. Between 2014 and 2022, the county only netted 4,600 jobs, which is just 4% of the Plan 2035 goal. Local centers where job growth is encouraged lost more than 11,000 jobs. On the positive side, the areas targeted for the most employment growth did receive the most growth, which includes the RTDs and the employment areas. Next slide, please. Looking at the employment forecasts, which compares projected 2035 job totals with the targets. The county is expected to reach just over 86,000 jobs by 2035, more than 27,000 short of the 114,000 job goal. The largest deficits are in the RTDs, with local centers and employment areas also projected to fall short. In contrast, established communities are expected to exceed their target with more than 37,000 jobs forecasted, compared to the goal of 10,000. And then future water and sewer service areas and rural and agricultural areas are also projected to be above target. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes staff recommendations for better aligning future development with Plan 2035. First off, staff recommends to continue reviewing zoning in the established communities during master and sector plans to ensure consistency with long-term growth goals. Second, staff recommend assessing development capacity in the regional transit districts by looking at entitlements, environmental constraints, and land use patterns to ensure they can still absorb the recommended growth. This may result in expanding the boundaries if needed to support additional growth. And then finally, staff recommend establishing updated job targets. Due to major unforeseen disruptions, such as the COVID pandemic, there were a lot of job losses in accommodation, food services, transportation, and Plan 2035's original employment goals are no longer realistic, and revised targets are necessary. So that concludes this portion of the presentation, or the overview of the growth management goals. Next, I'll move on to the indicators of success. The next two slides show the indicators of success that were established in Plan 2035 in Table 26. However, these have been modified since its approval, as we recommended in the 2019 report. Certain indicators have been modified because of data availability, but we've also added some new indicators. Depending on how you count them, there are 31 indicators, 5 more than originally identified in Plan 2035. These are the new and revised indicators are notated on the slide. Next slide, please. And this is the remainder of the indicators. Also note that each one has a target of either increasing or decreasing. In the report, this is shown using red and green arrows. The red indicates an indicator is going in the wrong direction, and the green indicates that an indicator is going in the desired direction. On the next several slides, I'll now review each indicator organized by general plan element. Next slide, please. Before we review the indicators, I did want to note that the goal was to compare data from the year 2019 to 2024. In some cases, data availability varies, so the specific years may differ. Also, staff has linked each indicator to Plan 2035 strategies. And whenever an indicator shows a negative trend, staff has identified which strategies could help reverse it. The first set of indicators relates to land use. There's only one land use indicator outside the growth management goals, which is the commercial tax base relative to the residential tax base. This indicator is currently trending negatively. To address this, staff recommend focusing on strategy EP 1.1, particularly the creation of the business improvement districts, and strategy 6.4, which calls for a countywide information clearinghouse to support small business. Next slide, please. Next up are the transportation mobility indicators, of which there are 4. All 4 of these indicators are being met. As you see, we've increased the number of bicycle and pedestrian facilities constructed and decreased the amount of greenhouse gas emissions emitted in the county. Next slide. The county also has positive trends for mode split and shift, showing an increase in the number of people taking alternative modes of transportation. And there's also a decrease in the vehicles miles traveled. Next slide, please. The next category of indicators is under economic prosperity, which has the most indicators with 9. Currently 3 out of 8. Currently 3 out of 8 are showing positive trends. Basically, we have seen an increased educational attainment, increase in the median home value, and a decrease in the unemployment rate. Next slide, please. Now on to the indicators that are showing negative trends under economic prosperity. Specifically, the commercial vacancy rate has increased from less than 4% to 8%. With this indicator, staff has called out EP 6.5 5 as an area of focus, which recommends conducting a review of the county code to make it easier for small business development. Next slide, please. The next indicator is the net flow of commuters to work. As of 2021, there is a net loss of commuters, meaning more people are leaving the county to go to work than are entering the county. Staff recommend focusing on EP 10.1 to work with the EDC to identify new industry sectors to target for development. This was already identified as a priority in the 2022 Economic Development Strategic Action Plan for Prince George's County. Next slide, please. The next indicator is for poverty rates, which saw about a 1% increase. With this negative trend, staff recommend focusing on HN 2.2, which is all about improving housing affordability. Next slide, please. The next indicator is the regional share of employment, which has stayed steady at 11%. With this lack of change, staff recommend focusing on EP 1.5, which aims to market the county's competitive edge through marketing and branding. Next slide, please. And the last economic prosperity indicator is wage growth, which has decreased about $1,000. Staff recommends focusing on EP 9.4, which is about workforce development and building people skills set for higher paying jobs. Next slide. The next plan element is the natural environment, which has 5 indicators. 4 out of 5 are currently being met. This includes increasing the amount of agricultural land preserved, the amount of forests planted and preserved, the amount of impervious surfaces retrofitted, and the number of LEED buildings. Next slide. The one indicator that has a negative trend is waterway health, measured using the combined biotic index. Given this trend, staff recommends focusing on NE 2.4, which is all about improving and tracking water quality. Next slide. Next up, we have housing and neighborhoods, which are all showing positive trends. Specifically, the crime rate is down, foreclosures are down, and households burdened by housing costs are down. Next slide. Then the last 2 indicators that have positive trends for housing and neighborhoods are housing and transportation affordability is decreasing, and occupied housing units are increasing. Next slide, please. Next are the community heritage, culture, and design indicators, of which there are 2, and both have positive trends. Basically, we've increased the number and historically designated properties, and we've also preserved additional archaeological sites. Next slide. Next, we have the healthy community indicators, of which 1 out of 2 are being met. The first, which is measured together, we have decreased the square footage per capita of fast food restaurants, while increasing the square footage of per capita of non-fast food restaurants. Next slide. The next indicator has a negative trend. It's the obesity rates for adults and youth, which has gone up for both groups. With this negative trend, staff recommends focusing on HC 1.2 to enhance the health impact assessment, which is required in the zoning ordinance, and then HC 2.2 to incentivize the reduction of food swamps, and then HC 2.4 to offer tax abatements to full-service grocery stores in the transit centers. Next slide, please. And then lastly, for public facility indicators, acres of parkland and recycling rates are most closely linked. Both these indicators are going in a positive direction, with parks increasing their acreage by over 1,000 acres, and then recycling rates increasing by almost 10% between 2017 and 2022. Next slide. And just a quick recap, there are 22 out of 31 indicators going in the desired direction, with 8 underperforming indicators. When compared to the last 5-year evaluation, commercial vacancy rates, net flow of commuters, poverty rates, regional share of employment, wage growth, and waterway growth are newly underperforming indicators. On the bright side, however, 3 underperforming indicators have reversed their trends, and that includes the greenhouse gas emissions, median home values, and recycling rates. Next slide. And that concludes staff's presentation. We're definitely happy to take questions.
Are there any questions from the planning board?
I've got a question. So with regards to the goals that are not being met, Is there a study being done to determine why those goals are not being met? For example, in the jobs, if I'm reading this correctly, it's a percent of goal, we're negative 51%.
Question.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Adam Dodson, I was a project facilitator on this project. We are carrying out a number of different studies in the community planning division, including an evaluation of the performance of master plans and therefore the policies within those. That will obviously coalesce with recommendations to make improvements, which would impact Plan 2035 goals as well.
Some of the indicators are perhaps unsurprising given the COVID period happened during this period of evaluation. It's not an excuse, but it is unfortunately a fact that we all had to deal with. But we're also able to look at other potential work program items that will help us focus in on some of these underperforming indicators to get to the bottom of it.
So part of it is as a result of the COVID. So is there anything being undertaken to, because that was an anomaly. So how often do you review the numbers? Is it just every 5 years?
Yeah, it is every 5 years. There's no annual monitoring at this moment, although there is an annual report through the Maryland Department of Planning, which covers a number of these indicators in a bit more detail. That's something we have to produce annually for the Maryland Department of Planning.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
So this is why the current year for the housing is 2022. That's the number that you're using. Right. You said the foreclosure rates.
Foreclosure rates? If it says 2022, that should be correct on the slide.
Current year 2024 for foreclosure rates.
Yeah, so we tried to use the most up to date. In this report, a lot of the data was collected in 2024. So it kind of goes back to 2022 for some of them, 2023, depending on data availability.
And each of the sources is quoted under each table as well, so you can see where we went to for that information.
Seeing that there's no other questions, thank you guys so much. I really love the report.
Mm-hmm.
We'll now move on to the next agenda item, item number 9, Countywide Planning Division, New Hampshire Avenue, MD 650, MD Bus Transit Study Presentation. We will now hear from staff.
It's okay if I introduce from here. I know staff usually doesn't do that, but I don't want to get crowded over there.
Got it.
Chairman Barnes and members of the planning board, I'm Mark Berger. I'm the supervisor of the transportation planning section. With me today from Montgomery County Department of Transportation is Justin Willits. He is the capital projects manager of their transit section, and Jamie Henson, and he's the BRT implementation manager. So a little background on today's presentation. First of all, what is BRT? Just want to make sure everyone understands it's express bus service with access to an exclusive travel lane, traffic signal priority, and unlimited stops to create an efficient rubber tire based rapid transit operation. To date, Montgomery County has led an effort to study the potential to implement a new bus rapid transit system on Maryland 650 from Fort Totten Metro Rail Station to Colesville. They've engaged with over thousands of residents over the past 3 years, and they're ready for our agency to adopt a preferred alternative to move the study toward a preliminary design and environmental analysis. The purpose of today's presentation is to brief the planning board The so what factor is that the proposed BRT travels through 1 1/3 mile of our county. It also has a 1 mile piece that also shares the boundary with Montgomery County. So specifically Maryland on Maryland 650 between University Boulevard and Northampton Drive. It's about a 1 1/3 mile. That's within our county, which includes the Tacoma Langley Transit Center. And then the shared boundary is from the DC line to East West Highway or Maryland 410. So Montgomery County is looking for our planning board support and thus the full commission support. And I'll now turn over the presentation to my colleagues from Montgomery County.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman Barnes and members of the board. My name is Justin Willits. I am the Capital Projects Manager and Project Manager for the New Hampshire BRT study with MCDOT. I'm joined with the BRT Implementation Manager, Jamie Henson. I'll be taking you through this brief presentation. Thank you for squeezing us in. And with that, we can get started on presentation. Thank you for the intro on bus rapid transit. If we can advance to the next slide for a brief agenda. We will go with a brief overview of the project, talk about the outreach and coordination we've done, review the hybrid alternative recommendation, that is the recommendation of the study, review several Prince George's station areas to give you a sense of what this might look like in the future, take questions and have a brief discussion and talk about our next steps process-wise. So overview of the project, starting at the Fort Totten Metro Rail Station in the district. We are then moving north up Eastern Avenue onto New Hampshire Avenue, traveling to the Colesville Park and Ride to intersect with a future Randolph Road BRT that we are also pursuing. The studies identified preliminary station locations. We've developed and evaluated several alternatives, which we will touch on, and recommended a preferred alternative. And a little bit about the purpose and the need of this project, which we'll touch on in subsequent slides, is really to deliver higher quality, faster bus transit service that both serves existing transit riders better, but also attracts new riders, and also serves existing bus service better. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Next slide. So some of the previous coordination with Prince George's County, we had extensive technical advisory committee meetings involving professionals from Montgomery County, Prince George's County, DPWT and planning, as well as State Highway Administration, WMATA, and other organizations as well. Met 6 times over the course of the study, and had some iteration to this process to come up with the hybrid alternative, which we'll touch on shortly. The Corridor Advisory Committee was also met 6 times. We opened applications and had 26 members of the Corridor Advisory Committee that contributed to the project in different ways and also assisted with getting the word out about various engagements that we completed. We had 2 public meetings at the Langley Park Community Center in Prince George's County in June of 22 and as recently as May of 25. And I think one of the best ways we reached members of the community was through neighborhood pop-ups that we did primarily at bus transit hubs, but also at the Fort Totten, at the Metro rail stations and other major community hubs. Next slide. So several of the key findings from the existing conditions, about 70% of the corridor is within a half mile of an equity area, as defined by both Montgomery County Planning and MWCOG. Several bus routes with high ridership and frequent service travel the corridor, primarily in the south, but several of the WMATA of their core routes travel a large percentage of the corridor. And then we have high transit ridership in the southern part of the corridor. Next slide. Some more of the interesting kind of background on the existing conditions were the bus speeds on the corridor. As you can see on this map, the green shows speeds over 20 miles an hour, which are primarily in the northern half of the corridor before you get to US 29. But of key interest is where buses are currently traveling at 10 miles an hour or less. And going back to the purpose and need, we really wanted to address the existing transit travel times as well as the future BRT travel times. And we will show you how we think we've accomplished that with this hybrid alternative approach. Next slide. So our approach to develop and evaluate the alternatives. First, we identified stations, and then we divided the corridor up into segments based on existing land use and the transportation context, as it does vary with some of the access roads and kind of what the existing typical section looks like. So you'll see that segmented out on upcoming slides. We use those to develop the general concepts and screen those concepts at a high level for each segment, and then define and evaluate the alternatives based on those segments, and then recommended a preferred alternative. Next slide. So the original 4 alternatives that we had did not include the hybrid alternative. So these 5 segments, we looked at the first alternative with a mixed traffic operation from end to end. Alternative 2 included curb lanes in segments 1 and 2. Alternative 3 included median lanes in segment 1 and 2 with a single median lane for segments 3 and 4 and mixed traffic north. And then alternative 4 looked at median lanes in segment 1 and 2, a single median lane in segment 3 with median lanes in segment 4, and then mixed traffic to the north similarly. And as we evaluated these alternatives, several segments performed really well within each alternative, but none of them seemed to be optimal from a big picture perspective. So we went back to the CAC and the TAC, and we iterated to come up with the hybrid alternative, which we will see on the next slide, please. Which really pieced together the best performing segments of those alternatives to give us a more cohesive hybrid alternative, which has curb lanes in segments 1 and 2 moving north with mixed traffic in segment 3 approaching the Beltway. Curb lane.
So that is,
Yeah,
like.
Sorry. No worries. So yeah, segment 3 mixed traffic up to the Beltway, and just beyond the Beltway, segment 4 would transition back to curb lanes and then mixed traffic in the northern segment. Next slide. So one of the key ways we've accommodated both BRT and local bus service is by adding in specific and strategic bus pull-out locations. And it really helps to benefit, and you'll see this on a subsequent slide, the existing travel time of existing services and local bus. But it also helps to keep the BRT moving. Without the pull-out, you can see in the graphic on the left, the BRT would get stuck behind the local bus service. These pull-outs not only allow the local bus to pull out of the way of the BRT and keep the BRT moving, but as opposed to if that was a general traffic lane, merging can create some safety issues for the local bus into general traffic. And it also could lead to where the BRT operation would want to merge around the bus if it were blocking the bus lane. So it provides a safe place for the local bus to get out of the way of the BRT, but it really optimizes the travel time for both, which we'll show with some data on the next slide.
The pull-out work?
Very similarly to any existing bus pull-out you see, but as opposed to where general traffic would be occupying this on a normal 6-lane arterial, the local bus would more safely be able to merge back into the bus lane, only having to be concerned with a BRT vehicle there rather than any general traffic vehicle.
Thank you.
Great question. Here's just a sense of where those local bus pullouts are located. We've put an asterisk next to the locations in Prince George's County. In the northbound direction, you'll see locations 1, 6, and 7 at Belford Place, Merrimack Drive, and Quebec Street. And in the southbound direction, number 10 at Merrimack Drive. Next slide. And this is really most of the takeaways for the differentiation of the hybrid alternative from the rest of the alternatives are on this slide. What you really see is the best travel times for BRT and local bus are in the hybrid alternative. A lot of that is delivered because of the way those local bus pullouts keep the BRT moving. But all the benefit of the dedicated lane is captured by the local bus without any disruption or friction from operating in mixed traffic. That is not the case, say, for the median lane concepts, where you would see a lot of slowdown for the local bus because it is mixed with that general traffic. Similarly, general traffic operates quite well in the hybrid alternative, not the best of all the alternatives, but second best, if you will, because they are not experiencing any delay from any of the transit vehicles being in their lane. And that is really the benefit of this alternative and the curb lane operation. Next slide, please. So here we have the capital costs for each alternative. As you can see, the median lanes, both alternatives 3 and 4, require a significant amount of reconstruction for the curbs, the medians, the right-of-way costs associated with that expansion. And that really increases that capital cost. And given the metrics we saw on the previous slide, the hybrid alternative both balances the capital costs. While it is slightly higher than alternatives 1 and 2, it does provide a superior operational benefit to.
The hybrid is similar to what they use in Ocean City, where you have the dedicated lane, far right lanes dedicated, but you have traffic that can go in it simply for turning or entering in.
Correct. Most of the intersections do allow for right turns in the bus lanes, yes. And you see that cost per mile there at 16.4 million per mile. The yellow shows the rolling stock or the cost of the vehicles. And that really pencils out well for the amount of time savings you're getting for each mode, for the amount you're spending per mile. Next slide, please. So to hone in specifically on Prince George's County, we're talking about both sides of New Hampshire, near University Boulevard, the northern end at Northampton Drive. Key sites in Prince George's County are Tacoma Langley Transit Center and the Northwest Branch. And then, of course, the east side of New Hampshire from Eastern Avenue at the DC border to East-West Highway. Next slide. And here's a stationary example. So we have both BRT and a couple of the pullouts shown here. The Tacoma Langley BRT station is shown at the central part of your screen with that faint circle around it. You will see a northbound BRT station shown with the green outlines. Some modifications to the median there to enhance pedestrian safety crossing the corridor. And then the southbound station would be incorporated. It's not shown in green, but it would be incorporated into the footprint of the Tacoma Langley Transit Center. Moving north up the corridor, thank you. At Merrimack, you see 2 bus pullouts on the south side of that intersection, near side northbound, far side southbound, which keep the BRT moving as it exits northbound and also keeps the BRT moving as it comes in the southbound direction to Tacoma Langley. Next slide, please. And then moving further up the corridor to Quebec Street, we have a example of far side stations for the BRT, and then northbound upstream from the BRT stations, excuse me, you can see another example of a pullout, but not one in the southbound direction. So that is a location where it's a standalone northbound pullout. Next slide, please. So at this time, we're happy to take questions, to have a discussion around any of these items. But for us, our next steps, we are scheduled to go to the Montgomery County Planning Board on March 12th. And then we're waiting to schedule our county council for the selection of a preferred alternative. We'll go to the Transportation Environment Committee first and then to full council. Just want to say thank you again for having us today, and we're happy to discuss or answer any questions you might have.
Where do you see when this will come to fruition?
So it is not funded beyond this phase yet. So that's a question of when funding would become available for design.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, you may proceed. That's it.
Yes, we're just looking for your concurrence in the preferred alternative, specifically the designs you're seeing or not. That's just an idea. It's just the idea of that hybrid alternative that we're looking for your concurrence on.
Good. Is there a motion?
Yeah. I move that we adopt the report for the New Hampshire Avenue Flash BRT study. And it seems to me that the hybrid is the best option.
Very good. Second. I just second it. It's been properly moved and second. All in favor, I would now call the roll. Vice Chair Giraldo.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Corrier.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you guys so much. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
This concludes all items on today's agenda. I would like to thank the staff and everyone for coming out. The time is now 1:13 and the meeting is now adjourned.